The bouncer, Zorax, watched from the sidelines as a massive red-skinned Grozak took a deep breath, his muscles swelling so violently that his upper garments nearly tore apart. Zorax saw the two humans react immediately. Daniel reached for a chair and gripped it like a weapon, while Kyle, apparently the more moderate of the two, tried to argue one last time.
No one has anything to gain from a fight.
At that moment, the Grozak simply took a step forward and boldly emptied the contents of a beverage mug on Kyle's head. It was an unfortunate move, since Daniel took advantage of the distraction to kick him between the legs, sending the massive creature to the ground screaming. This provoked the fury of every other predator in the saloon, who felt personally offended by the suffering of their friend. Zorax remembered that it had all begun because of the human Kyle, entering the Night Mist Saloon with his body stinking of visor poison, which he claimed came from an embrace with a visor woman. This had understandably shaken the sensibilities of the patrons, who were not immune to the poison like the human was. Of course, the humans had tried to get the situation under control before Anera had intervened to screw them over, and she was now in the VIP area watching the fight unfold with a psychopathic smile that only an energy creature could muster. Kyle, who had just been trying diplomacy before being soaked in a beverage, took advantage of their fear of poison by stepping in front of his friend, who was about to take a collective beating. A malicious smile crossed his face as they recoiled at his presence, and Zorax felt a chill run down his spine at how much the aura around the friendly and diplomatic human had changed since the Grozak had provoked him. Daniel, with that quick thinking of his, took advantage of the moment of hesitation to grab a glass of exotic beverage from the counter and threw it in the face of a white-scaled reptilian, breaking the glass against his face and causing the strong beverage to spill into the reptilian's eyes. What followed was a group of 3 black-furred Brazarians taking offense at the pain of their friend again, suddenly overcoming their fear of poison and charging at Kyle all at once. The humans engaged briefly in a fierce exchange of punches and kicks, their movements quick and desperate as they tried to hold their ground. But they were soon pushed back by the trio, who had the clear advantage of both superior numbers and overwhelming physical strength, their claws and fangs giving them weapons the humans simply couldn't match. For a moment, Zorax thought it would be over for the humans, when Daniel suddenly climbed onto the counter to the bartender's despair and began throwing every beverage he could find with the reckless accuracy and lack of concern that only humans could muster. To them, everything was a weapon. The trio of Brazarians, with their thick hides dripping with liquor, were more irritated than hurt and decided to escalate the brawl into a fight to the death. But when their knives flashed, Kyle, the more diplomatic of the two humans, moved in a blur, snatched a candle from a table, and somehow set their alcohol-soaked fur ablaze. The trio screamed, then threw themselves to the ground and began their frantic struggle to put out the fire consuming their fur. What followed was utter chaos across the saloon. The non-predatory aliens, herbivores, merchants, and other peaceful species all scrambled desperately for the exits, now that things had escalated to this level of violence. Meanwhile, the other 2 big predators in the room, mountains of muscle and scars, just like Zorax himself, took a cautious step back after witnessing the humans' fighting style. There was no honor in it whatsoever, no code of combat, just pure survival instinct and ruthless pragmatism. It was the kind of merciless trait that could only have evolved in beings born on one of the most unforgiving planets in the Galactic Consortium. Zorax, for all his stature, bulk, and toughness, decided then and there that humans were not worth the trouble. Not now, not ever. Between the poison sticking to Kyle's body from that visor woman, Daniel's quick thinking in weaponizing everything in his path, and their seamless coordination, picking a fight with them was illogical. Perhaps Inera herself, with all her might as a transcendent energy being, was the only creature in this room capable of fighting the humans. Yet that detached personality of her kind raised a big question as to whether she would get herself involved. The other two bulky predators soon reached the same conclusion and joined the herbivores in their retreat, leaving the humans with their first real panicked faces since the fight had begun. They rushed to get water from behind the counter to save the trio of Brazarians, who were still writhing like wounded animals on the ground, desperately trying to extinguish the last of the flames clinging to their fur. The next moments passed in a blur in Zorax's mind. As the bouncer, he couldn't just run away, but for some reason, what was left in the saloon spoke not of a conflict finished, but of a brewing storm that perhaps had not yet shown its might. Inera sat alone in the VIP area, sipping her drink with a psychotic smile, while the blue-scaled bartender rushed to get a medical kit for the Brazarians, who would at worst need a visit to a tissue recovery pod, and at best would have to deal with bald spots in their fur for a few weeks. The two humans, breathing fast and seemingly shocked by the mess they had caused, finally took a glance at Inera, perhaps remembering that she was the one to blame for most of this chaos. Zorax saw the air spark with tension the moment their gazes met hers across the now empty saloon. Daniel pointed at Inera, his voice shaking in anger and exhaustion.
You did this! You caused this fight!
Kyle froze for a moment as he watched the bartender tending to the three Brazarians who stared up at him with terrified eyes, shadows of the predators they had been just minutes ago. In a weak voice, spoken more to himself than to anyone else, Kyle said,
"We did this."
Daniel disagreed immediately, his voice hardening.
No, it was that bitch over there.
He gestured angrily toward Inera in the VIP area.
We should go there and teach her a lesson.
His fists clenched as he added,
How is it fair that everyone gets hurt except her when she was the one who instigated the fight?
Daniel received no reply from Kyle, and the moment he was about to move toward Inera alone, Zorax remembered his job. Suddenly, he sprinted across the room and stopped Daniel with a single massive hand on his shoulder. Daniel slowly turned to stare back at him, his eyes filled with the confidence of someone who had just handed every predator in the saloon their asses and asked,
Do you have a problem with me?
Zorax remembered the humans had spoken civilly before the fight, and suddenly found himself offering advice. Perhaps the first time in his life he really meant it.
I know you humans were here to find someone to fix your ship, and today's fight wasn't your fault,
He said, his rocky voice unusually gentle.
But I'm warning you, Inera is not like any predator you've faced. No matter how you approach her, you will never win.
Daniel replied.
That's what every other predator in this place believed just minutes ago.
Zorax said,
She's different.
He stared at the energy currents flowing across her deceptively gentle form and explained,
She's a transcendent. To her, a physical form is a suggestion, not a law.
His voice dropped to a whisper.
Rumors have it that she can become intangible and phase through walls, and even glimpse causality to see the fates of those who dare to cross her. I would stay away from her if I were you, human.
Daniel said,
I think that's bullshit.
And ignored the advice as he approached the sofas in the now nearly empty VIP area. Zorax turned to Kyle to check if there was a chance he would stop his friend, but the other human was still staring at the Brazarians with a distant expression, clearly bothered by what he had done to them. As Zorax watched Daniel march determinedly toward the VIP area, he realized that the bar fight had fundamentally changed something within him. While before meeting the humans, his days had passed in comfortable certainty, fearing nothing and no one. Now he found himself genuinely terrified of what might unfold when this impossibly stubborn human met the transcendent being who treated reality as her plaything. He feared not just for Daniel or Kyle or even himself, but for the kind of catastrophic incident Lemure City itself might face when these two incomprehensible forces inevitably collided.
Thank you for watching the 6th chapter of the Finder series. You can find the link to the next chapter in the video description. You can also like the video and subscribe to increase your chances of being notified whenever we post a new one. Hiss.